makes cruciferous vegetables, the cabbage family, so good for us? They are the only food source of a class of phytonutrients called glucosinolates, of which there are over 100, and they are responsible for the distinctive bitterness and pungency of this group of vegetables, which includes easy to find options like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, collard greens, radishes, turnips, and rutabaga. Glucosinolates are probably most famous for their ability to reduce cancer risk, and they do this through several different pathways. But that's not all glucosinolates can do. They've been shown to improve glycemic control in type 2 diabetics. They have really powerful anti-inflammatory effects, so they can delay the progression of osteoarthritis. They reduce risk of cardiovascular disease, and some have even been shown to reduce risk of neurodegenerative disease, including Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and multiple sclerosis. All in all, the scientific evidence makes a very strong case for aiming for at least one serving of cruciferous vegetables daily.
Broccoli is bullshit. You guys have heard me say it before, but I'm going to keep saying it because you need to hear it. Broccoli is part of the Brassica family of plants. This family of plants contains compounds like isothiocyanates, which prevent the absorption of iodine in your thyroid, which leads to lower levels of thyroid hormones, low energy, weight gain, fatigue, malaise. Broccoli is also a common cause of gas, bloating, GI issues. You know this. You know that you are eating broccoli and you are farting afterwards. I know what's happening to you. I am giving you permission to stop eating broccoli. You don't need this in your life. Get the nutrients you need from meat and organs, the less toxic plant foods, which are fruits. You don't need to feel guilty about not eating broccoli. It's not good for you, and it's bullshit.
Glucosinolates are another defense chemical plants produce to protect themselves. These chemicals are only present in green, leafy vegetables. There's an enzyme in plants that acts as an activator for glucosinolate called myrosinase. These compounds are stored in separate compartments of the plant, but when the plant is cut, chewed, or digested, these two chemicals combine and are broken down, producing toxic bioactive chemicals called isothiocyanates. Glucosinolates are abundant in these foods, and some of them are also high in things like oxalates, lectins, phytates, salicylates, tannins, and saponins, giving you a cumulative dose of plant toxins. One of these glucosinolates is an isothiocyanate called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane gives off the smell of sulfur when cooking things like broccoli. It acts like an anti-nutrient, and unlike the other plant toxins, it binds with the nutrient iodine and prevents you from absorbing it, which is one of the most vital nutrients for human survival, by the way. Sulforaphane can inhibit iodine absorption in the thyroid by up to 50% in animal studies and cell culture.
The example that most people will know and will probably come as a shock to most people is the compound sulforaphane. Sulforaphane belongs to a family of compounds called glucosinolates. Glucosinolates are in the Brassica family, so we go back to this ancestral mustard plant, right? Mustard is the precursor for all the Brassica vegetables: kale, collard greens, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, right? Those are all Brassica vegetables. Those all had the ancestral mustard plant as their grandfather. That entire family of plants has glucosinolates, right? They make this family compound called glucosinolates, which are isothiocyanates. Now, how does this work? These are plant pesticides. These are produced by the plant to discourage animals from eating them. Most people have heard of sulforaphane when Rhonda Patrick is talking about like broccoli sprouts, and they hear about sulforaphane as being beneficial. But here's the real sulforaphane story. Sulforaphane doesn't exist as sulforaphane in any plant. It's too oxidatively reactive. What I mean by that is that some compounds we ingest from plants are very good at giving and taking electrons from other molecules and creating free radicals. And this is one of the ways that sulforaphane is very reactive and harmful for humans. If the sulforaphane molecule existed in a plant, it would kill the plant because it is so oxidatively reactive. It's such a strong oxidant. So what the plant does is it stores sulforaphane as a precursor molecule, which is called glucoraphanin. And we see this pattern often in plants. They have a precursor pesticide and they have an enzyme, and they're separated by a compartment in the plant membrane. When an animal chews the plant, they combine and they make the toxic chemical. This is exactly what happens with sulforaphane. So glucoraphanin is the precursor. Myrosinase is the enzyme. When you chew kale, broccoli, any of these foods in the raw state, you are combining myrosinase and glucoraphanin, and you are forming sulforaphane. And so that is the only time that sulforaphane is formed. What happens when we eat sulforaphane? Sulforaphane comes into the human body, and our body says, whoa, that's a very oxidatively stressful molecule. That's going to make free radicals. I'm going to detoxify it. But in the process of detoxifying it, it activates the NRF2 pathway, and sulforaphane can kick up glutathione a little bit, which is why people think it's beneficial, because it does have some hormetic effect. hormesis is this concept that a little bit of a toxin can be beneficial. The problem with sulforaphane, and the reason the plant made sulforaphane, at least in humans and other mammals, is that this family of compounds competes with iodine at the level of the thyroid to inhibit iodine absorption into the thyroid. So this family of compounds, the glucosinolates, isothiocyanates, these are the major reason for endemic goiter in the world. These are goitrogens. There are other compounds that are goitrogenic as well, drugs we use in psychiatry, lithium, amiodarone, but sulforaphane, glucosinolates, isothiocyanates are goitrogenic compounds. They cause goiter. Have you seen these pictures of people with these huge swollen necks? That's goiter. That's what happens when people don't get enough iodine. And so the plants have figured out, hey, I'm going to make this compound called sulforaphane. I mean, obviously we named it, but I'm going to make this compound if you eat me, and it's going to mess up your thyroid if you eat too much of me. So this is a plant pesticide. This is not something that benefits the plant. It's not something that benefits humans. I would argue it's a net negative for humans. The reason it gets confusing is because the supplement companies want to promote sulforaphane as a hormetic, meaning it's going to increase your glutathione. And glutathione is a molecule that we use as an antioxidant, right? But the tricky part is this. We don't need sulforaphane to make enough glutathione. There are plenty of studies that show that living a radical life, heat stress, cold stress, exercise, sun, these can all also be hormetics. They can increase your glutathione and give you adequate antioxidant status. We don't need sulforaphane, but we're sort of being sold this like bill of goods by the supplement company saying, hey, this will improve your glutathione, but they're not going to tell you about the fact that it's actually a toxin that's going to potentially affect your thyroid in a very negative way. So all these people just crushing broccoli sprouts. There are tons of cases now of actual thyroid disease from people. Examples on my Instagram. Sam Dancer is a good example, a really well-known CrossFit athlete, was just crushing the broccoli sprouts and green smoothies and getting tons of this and really messed up his thyroid. So it's totally a different paradigm shift, right? So the sulforaphane, perfect example of a plant pesticide. Plants don't want you to eat them.
And other isothiocyanates, okay? So radioiodine uptake to the thyroid is inhibited by 194 micromole of goitrin, but not 77 micromole of goitrin. Collards, Brussels sprouts, and some Russian kale contain sufficient goitrin to potentially decrease iodine uptake to the thyroid. They go on to say that turnip tops, commercial broccoli, broccoli rabe, and kale don't have as much goitrin and are probably not going to be a problem. But when you're trying to get to 10 grams of sulforaphane per day and you're eating pounds of broccoli sprouts or lots and lots of broccoli sprouts. And again, they didn't assay broccoli sprouts for amounts of goitrin or other isothiocyanates, nor have humans really fully investigated the anti-thyroid potential, the goitrogenic potential of many of these isothiocyanates. People are eating tons of broccoli sprouts, concentrated isothiocyanates in broccoli sprouts powder. What are we doing to our thyroids? Could we be nuking our thyroids in a negative way? And for what? And for what? So yes, sulforaphane can be beneficial because it turns on our antioxidant response system, but it also has many side effects which are ignored. And then if you look at these two, people might say, well, is the risk worth the benefit? And I would argue it's not. Or I would argue the benefit is not worth the risk because you can get your NRF2 system turned on without those molecules because you can do environmental hormesis. You can go in the sauna. You can exercise. You can fast. You can be in ketosis.
That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense because isn't a vegan diet the healthiest diet on the planet? You see all these people promoting veganism and you're sitting here telling me that when they chew on their grass that it releases toxins and destroys their body. This can't be true.
Research suggests that if you eat broccoli, up to 80% of the sulforaphane can be absorbed into the bloodstream and taken up by cells, depending on certain conditions. Sulforaphane is a powerful insecticide, and it can do the very same thing to your cells. How does it kill insects? Does it smash them with a shoe? No. But in humans, once it gets inside, it can poison the mitochondria, it can generate free radicals in the body, it can damage basic thyroid functions, it can deplete glutathione, which is our body's natural antioxidant, and it can damage the epithelial layer in our gut. Just like oxalates, lectins, and saponins, glucosinolates are yet another plant toxin that can cause direct damage to the human gut, leading to things like leaky gut syndrome. Fortunately, some cooking methods do work against glucosinolate, but you still can't get rid of all of them, especially if you eat raw or improperly cooked vegetables. Here's the funny thing too. Cooking will get rid of some glucosinolate, but it will also get rid of some of the nutrients in the vegetables as well, further decreasing their nutritional value. So in the end, you're still stuck with this defense chemical, and a less nutritious food. And I don't know about you, but boiled, mushy vegetables are just absolutely disgusting. Still, though, this won't stop so-called health and nutritional experts from making the claim that this plant toxin is actually good for you. In theory, yes, glucosinolate may have beneficial effects like fighting cancer, but it doesn't just kill cancer cells. It kills your healthy cells as well. It kills everything.
And then when it comes to plants, overall plants as an umbrella term, they have defense chemicals that are clearly defense chemicals. For example, sulforaphane, which we're told is healthy. I just got done reacting to Rhonda Patrick yesterday, who said that sulforaphane, you should be eating a lot of it. It comes from broccoli and broccoli sprouts because it activates your pathway, this pathway called NRF2. It's an antioxidant pathway. It's involved in upregulating your antioxidants that you create on your own. You know what else activates NRF2 pathway is smoking. The reason why is because you're inducing oxidative stress. And so in order to counteract that, your body upregulates its own antioxidants. Sulforaphane is called anti-cancer because of its ability to kill cancer cells through oxidation, because it does that with every single cell, even healthy ones. So of course it's going to activate your NRF2 pathway. That begs the question as to whether it's a good thing or not. And so all of these compounds, not to mention sulforaphane is not in broccoli. It's released from broccoli when you cut it. Interesting. So we probably shouldn't be eating it. Lectins, phytic acid, oxalic acid, all the common ones that we hear about. Glycoalkaloids, which are neurotoxins. They disrupt cholesterol. They disrupt cell membrane structure and function. They can cause them to leak or burst on impact if you have enough of them. In fact, we actually use glycoalkaloids in sarin nerve gas. Yeah, and I mean, I know that people would be inclined, the opponents would probably be inclined to say, you're not going to suffocate from eating broccoli. It's like, that's not the point. What is the requirement for these compounds in the human diet? Best to stay away from them if there's no requirement for them, and above a certain physiological concentration in the body will induce injury.
Plants are not toxic once you've cooked them thoroughly.
They're less toxic. And it also depends on how long, once again, if you get thoroughly enough in terms of its cooking process, then you can make them less and less toxic. Yes, but eventually there's a diminishing return there where you're not going to get to a point where they're completely non-toxic. Fiber that is not broken down, even in pressure cooking. You can break down a lot of lectins, sure, great, but you have a really hard time breaking down oxalic acid under heat. Phytic acid as well. Phytic acid and the nutrient absorptive inhibitors that are arguably less of a problem than the ones that actively induce harm. Yes, they're less problematic, but they're still problems. Of course, you want to absorb all the nutrients that you're consuming in all of your other food and not give it to something else. You want to feed yourself, not something else that you're going to then excrete. Yeah, you can make them less toxic with heat and high pressure as well, but you cannot completely eliminate them. So at the end of the day, instead of trying to, if you have to go through a huge process of trying to detoxify something before you eat it, and you're still, the double whammy is that you're still going to leave some toxicity in there, you might want to just not eat it at all.